What to do if you consider yourself a terrible communicator. Hello and welcome to Communication Psychology. My name is Gerhard. I'm a psychologist from Hamburg, Germany, specialized in communication psychology in international, intercultural and multi-language contexts. Well, we as human beings tend to see things black or white. We like to create false dichotomies because in reality, many things are on a scale. But we quickly make judgments. Is it good or bad, beautiful or ugly? Is somebody a success or a failure? And it's natural to do the same with our communication skills. Either we see ourselves as competent or incompetent communicators. Now let's do a thought experiment. Imagine you're an elementary school teacher and unbeknown to you, the school district has placed the 20 most difficult children of the whole school district in your class. Your colleague, a friend of yours in the next classroom, got the 20 children with the least behavior problems in the school district, the 20 most easy to teach children. Now, if you both don't know this, you probably feel less competent a communicator than your colleague next door. Even if you start understanding that you have lots of problematic children. So it's very difficult to make judgments on our communication detached from the other person we interact with and the situation, the setting. So somebody may operate in a setting which is highly predictable and thus gain a feeling of competence, of confidence. The person has figured out what people want, how to answer them, and everything seems fine. But you may be in a job where there's lots of spontaneous interactions. There are diverse people you have to interact with. And it will be more difficult to get a feeling of competence because every time, every interaction is somehow new. Also, of course, it depends on the language. So if you are interacting as a foreigner in a different country with a different language, yes, you will always feel a bit less competent because the other people in their native language are able to react quicker than you. So even if it's just a millisecond, you feel like you are communicating with your brakes on. Now, what you also should consider is each person's background. So many of us haven't learned good communication skills at home. We may even have learned destructive or unproductive communication skills at home. So at what point should we expect a child to learn those skills if they are not taught at school? So it really doesn't help if we start feeling bad about ourselves and beating ourselves up for being bad communicators. Everything is learnable, and communication likewise. But the question is now how to learn that and which direction to learn. Because what often happens in many things in life and in communication, that what we really should do is we should strive for a balance. So in communication too. So it's not that we should always be authentic, but we should balance it with an awareness for the situation, for the other person, and find some balance in the way we talk to others. Or, for example, what we could balance too is, on the one hand, to be a good communicator, you need to know some techniques, some methods of influence. So how can you present your message in the best possible way? How can you become more convincing? On the other hand, you also need to work on yourself, because otherwise you're just using manipulation techniques that are not compatible with who you are. An example, as parents, we want our children to do something, to do our homework, to be quiet, respect our neighbors, and so on. However, and children perceive that we are not the person to say this, we encouraging them to read more books while I myself am checking my mobile phone all the time, not reading books at all, just watching movies. Well, this message is probably to be very ineffective. So to have a successful communication, also we need to have the necessary skills, but we also need to have self-awareness and clarify who we are and what we want to achieve, and maybe change something there too. Because we can learn the best manipulation techniques as long as our child sees that we ourselves don't read books, and we ourselves are very undisciplined and don't enjoy learning new things. Then our children may hear us calling them to their duty of school children, but they will not comply necessarily. So what happens is often that we tend to develop in a direction we already are. So for example, if we are already focused on just getting other people to do what you like without ever watching inside, you probably want from communication training more of the same. So you are looking for new communication hacks, new manipulation strategies. So you're going more into that direction. So you will not look inside and figure things out inside of yourself, which maybe would be the better way to go if you want to convince your children, for example, to become a bit self-conscious and be able to tell your children, yes, you're right in observing that I myself don't read books. And maybe or it's also difficult for me to learn. I'm asking you to learn, but I had the same problems when I was at school. And maybe without lots of manipulation, you get higher compliance because the children feel that there's congruency in yourself and your message. On the other hand, there are people who are already focused on their interior journey. They are doing meditation and psychotherapy, and they probably will tend to go more into that direction instead of maybe learning some practical communication skills that get their message to be more effective. So I hope you got some helpful information out of this. So the homework for you would be to assess your typical communication situations. So how easy or difficult are the situations I have to communicate in with other people? How difficult or easy are they? And how predictable versus spontaneous are most of my interactions during the day? And how did I learn my communication skills at home or at school? After that assessment, try to figure out what would be the best way to acquire those skills. What skills am I missing? For example, if you're operating in an environment with highly diverse people and the situations you need to communicate in are very unpredictable, it will not help if you memorize certain phrases or dialogues. Then, on the contrary, you need to train reacting spontaneously to unpredictable situations. For example, you can have ChatGPT generate 100 difficult questions you could encounter in your current position and pick one question a day and film yourself reacting spontaneously towards it. Now, so that could be like a training. So you are practicing reacting to spontaneous questions every day on your own. So you may get better doing that in reality too. However, if you just memorize certain phrases, the probability is very low that you will be able to use them in reality. So I wish you much success with your communication. If you want to have a free first help introduction to communication psychology in your company, please call me and I'll arrange a meeting. Bye-bye.